album concept hour. The album concept hour. It's the album concept hour.
Welcome everybody to the Album Concept Hour podcast. We are here for another week of concept albums, and this week is no exception. We have Corb Lund's Horse Soldier, exclamation points on both of those. And I am your host, Brad LeBaron, and we are joined by John. How's it going, John?
Oh, it's going good.
Good to have you here. And how you doing, Dave?
Yeah, pretty solid.
Pretty solid in the studio, ready to break down another album for you guys. But we have a guest here for this particular album. It is the person that actually suggested this one for us, and the host of the Born Under Punches podcast, a D&D tabletop podcast. We have Kelly on the show. What's going on, Kelly?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man.
I should clarify, it's not a D&D podcast. We do have sort of our own in-house rule system, because I think
I'm sorry. I kind of blanket term D&D, all tabletops as D&D games. It's a bad habit of mine. But yeah, what are you, so it's a homebrew, you said?
Yeah, we've kind of come up with a bit of a homebrew system that's more about, like, it's less of a game and more of just kind of improv storytelling, because that's kind of what me and my friends are more into, is just like doing bits and stupid voices and not really getting anywhere. And
I mean, that's the best part. So
I think so, because like, I mean, D&D comes from, the 70s when, instead of sitting around with your friends getting, podcast mics, you just, you didn't have the option to do it. So like you had to sit around it. Actually, sorry, the better equivalent would be like, you didn't have an N64, you didn't have a PS5 or whatever they're on. Like, if you wanted a video game, you had to have this elaborate rule set in front of you. But now that we have video games, it's like this is kind of just a very like turgid game to slog through, and you're always just like checking manuals and rules, and it's like, I don't want that. I just want to do stupid characters. So that's more what it's about. But we're also, I don't know, we can't really stay pegged down to one thing. So we've, it originally started as interviewing guests and then playing the game with them. Okay. And it turns out, you may have found this, it's kind of like a lot to get guests on a regular basis.
Yeah, it can, some guests, it can be hard to nail down on a return visit.
So we kind of swapped out the guests with I could name some names. Yeah, but we ended up kind of swapping out the interview format for a lot of different kind of segments that are not role playing. Okay. And I'm kind of cooking up some new directions that we might take it that are just like completely unrelated. So it's a hodgepodge, but hopefully, like, if people enjoy the sense of humor or kind of just the general vibe of it, they'll like anything we put out.
Nice. Well, we'll put a link in the description for the main page or whatever, and you guys can go from there. I found you, or I met you on the Discords. I believe it's through the Hollywood Handbook Discord. We know each other, right?
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah. This is another Hollywood Handbook. I mean, I'm telling you, dude, I love my Hollywood Handbook fans.
It's Brad's favorite.
Coming on the show, because I know we have some common ground.
If you want to punish yourself and dig into the earliest stuff, like, it's probably obvious how much I'm trying to lift from Hollywood Handbook in terms of like the tone of how he did the interviews. So, dude,
right? I mean, trying to capture that particular energy is tough.
Yeah, and I definitely, like, anytime you hear, and now we're getting into the Hollywood Handbook shop top, but anytime you hear Sean Clemens talk about kind of like his like authentically about his real life personality, like he talks about struggling with like being sincere in front of people. And like kind of being prickly. And I relate to all of it so much. So like,
absolutely. Yeah. I have a similar kind of, not in all, like in some circles I'm fine, but in other circles I can be a little cold and standoffish as well. So like when he's like, some people just assume that I'm always an asshole, and that's just who I am, but I just sound like that even when I'm being a normal human being. So like, it's a fun conundrum. And I mean, I guess, doing what he does, I can understand why that happened with Sean in particular, because of, so many hours of Hollywood Handbook, and like it'll make a lot of people distrust your intentions. But anyway, I got you on. You're on now on our Discord. We pulled you into our Discord as well, and it's still there, guys. We got 50 people, but I mean, always take more. I know I stopped talking about it after 50 people, but you know, we always have some great, you know, albums being like thrown out there by different people in the chat. One person's putting together this like world album like playlist
that was
project thing. That is you.
The song
Sorry.
in every language. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so you tell me a little bit about that then before we get into horse soldier. I think I meant to write down a question about that.
Yeah, I think it, I don't know where the idea came from. I discovered a few songs I really liked that were in languages other than English. Yeah. And I have just kind of a habit generally of making like really themed Spotify playlists. I have a bunch of them. I should get around to posting them in your Discord. One I made is like a 4-hour, like, I kind of tried to think of it like a concept album. It's like a 4-hour playlist that I think kind of weaves a narrative, and it's all just about doing different like drugs and alcohol and other substances. That
is a cool idea for a playlist. Just create your own concept album. That's interesting.
Very relevant to what we're doing today. I have one called Bleak War Songs, which is a bunch of bleak war songs in roughly chronological order. So
yeah, I was about to say, I mean, that's something that we were mentioning a little bit before this. You know, one of the genres of concept albums that we've covered a few times is, you know, a soldier oriented or like, you know, a veteran oriented music, which is, you know, one of an old form of music is to play during, you know, battle and, you know, sing about the horrors of war. So definitely one of those older folk standards that exist.
Horrors
that we
and glories of war.
War and glory, yeah. Sometimes, not as much in this one. I'm finding.
No.
This is mostly the sad stuff.
Yeah, and to answer your original question, the newest one I've been working on and asking for help on is one that's like a song in every language and trying to cover as many dialects as possible. And so there's a little invitation if anyone's listening and is on the fence about Discord. It's like, if you've got suggestions, hop on their Discord and start feeding. Yeah,
I feel bad because I saw it and I was like, I have nothing to add to this. I was like, there's not one that I can think of that you haven't already, you know, covered the, you know, category for. But people that are, you know, well versed in, you know, world music, like definitely, like you're saying, let us know. We have the Discord, always the link in the comment or the description. So contribute to that. But then let's go on to Horse Soldier.
Now hang on, I thought we were talking about Kilroy was here.
What?
Yeah, this takes
well, he was here.
We
did discuss Kilroy in the past.
I know, and you didn't invite me, and I'm mad about it. So that's what we're talking about today.
Well, you know, it was Brack, you know, and it's weird because he didn't particularly like the album either.
No, it's not a good album.
But
it's a fascinating bad album.
It is a very fascinating situation. Listen to our Kilroy's here episode. So I know that, you know, Kilroy was off the list, so you had to resort to other albums. You gave me like a short list of like 4 or 5 of them, and then
I gave you a long list, as I recall, a really long list.
A couple of lists of 4 or 5 of them. But you showed particular interest in this album, and you know, I always like to have someone on when they have like a connection to the album they're talking about. So, what is your connection to this one?
Yeah, so one of the main connections is just that it's sort of a piece of local music. So, I live here in Edmonton, Alberta. It's the capital of the province. And
okay. So you're close to where he's from.
Yeah, he's from Tabor, which is the corn capital of Alberta. It's down south. It's more Calgary adjacent city wise, but like him, I'm a Alberta boy, and he's significantly less ashamed of it. Yeah. We're also both Edmonton Oilers fans, although he's slightly less ashamed of that too.
Okay,
from Canada.
Yeah. So you know a lot about him then. This is someone that how long have you been following his work?
I think I first would have known about him probably closer to when this album was new. Like, my brother used to be like definitely a listener of like, I'm trying to think of like a more general way to kind of explain it, but like there's like a public radio broadcaster here that does a lot more like playing local artists and playing more like alternative artists. So like, so even, I mean, here, he's not like necessarily a household name. Like he's well known, I would say, in Alberta, maybe less so in the rest of Canada.
Yeah, but I feel like I had heard the name Corb Lund before. I just didn't have a song to like kind of put to it.
Yeah, and like he's definitely broken through to some amount of success in the US as well, because it's like you're going to be popular where the country music is, right?
Yeah. But yeah, you could that is something that you can kind of tell listening to this, is that it's like not like the only thing that was missing from the country elements was the Southern accent, the U.S. South accent.
Well, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that, because like when you hear him speak, like, and I've heard him speak just in his, regular talking voice, like he's definitely got a very Canadian accent, but I find often the way, and this will happen with a number of genres, but like to me, he's singing in sort of a genre accent. So a lot of the way he'll sing the words is kind of like Southern U.S. accented to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I can hear that too, but it's like, it's not, I guess maybe not as natural flowing as maybe someone that is from the South. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it always, and a fake accent will always sound more natural to someone who's not like a speaker of that accent at all.
Yeah. Plus, like, it's got a little bit of like indie style production. I was feeling, it's just the production's a little different than some of the other country that we've heard on the pod.
And that's a big part of what I gravitate toward in terms of music in general, is stuff that isn't like super genre pigeonholed. Like it can be a bit genre defiant, or like I like bands that try different things. In terms of their song structure, the instruments they pick up, and and in terms of lyrical content too. Like a big through line in terms of how I look at the lyrical content of albums is like, I kind of landed on this one talking to somebody who mostly listened to mainstream pop music, and she was like, "Yeah, basically every song's about love," and I was like, "Well, that's a pretty big theme." And so when
we can.
Narrow that down
a little bit. Yeah.
Like when to me, the kind of like major themes of like more, not generic, but like when people aren't coloring outside the lines as much, it's like love, sex, partying, getting intoxicated. Like that covers a huge amount of music. And so I'm always interested in artists. It's like, did you write a song that is not about those 5 things? And that's like very interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's like the two kind of spirits of music, which is like, trying to tell a story and make a statement, and then trying to dance and trying to party. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's get into a track though, so you guys can hear what we're talking about a little bit. This first track is
actually, before you do that.
Oh yeah. Is it, did you want to do we have a special track from our guest.
No, that'll be for later. But I wanted to just kind of cover a little bit of who Corb Lund is, because it will it will come up thematically later. So I grabbed, oddly enough, it was on the website for the Alberta Teachers Association. They have a write-up on him, and I'll just give you a couple paragraphs here. Lund studied history and anthropology at the University of Lethbridge for 2 years and moved to Edmonton, where he studied music at Grant MacEwan Community College in anthropology with a history minor at the University of Alberta. So like we actually went to the same university, he and I did.
Oh, wow.
He's just
your alums.
Yeah. Well, not quite. He's just 3 classes short of his degree, but he notes, "My mom is the only one who cares." He jokes that his third album, $5 Bill, which went gold in Canada, was his doctoral thesis. And it says, education has always been important in Lund's family. Both of his grandmothers were teachers in rural Alberta. His grandmother, Lund, taught grades 1 to 12 in a one-room school in Rosemary, some small town. And his grandmother, Ivans, taught on a Hutterite colony near Cardston, which will come up later, and on a southern Alberta Blackfoot First Nation, which will come up later. And he credits his grandfathers, who were ranchers and cowboys, for introducing him to Western cowboy songs, ballads, and oral history. So he does very much come from like, I've seen it, made fun of a lot of mainstream country artists where it's like, these guys have never touched a tractor in their life. But this is somebody who definitely comes from that background and like has lived and his family has lived kind of like that authentic ranchy thing. So I think it's worth noting as we get through some of it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like that comes through a little bit in, some of the tracks. So yeah, this first one then we're gonna get into is I Want to Be in the Cavalry to set up the whole thing.
I want a good night when the bugles sound and I hear the cannons roar. Well, I want to be in the cavalry if I must go off to war.
Now, doesn't it kind of just make you a little bit pumped up to go to war?
It does actually, yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever been this excited to go.
Very
to war.
optimistic. Yeah, this could be this could go well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like it kind of, it has a bit of infectiousness to its optimism. You're like, I kind of do want to like fly through battle on horseback. Like,
let's go.
Yeah.
What could
I mean,
go
I
wrong?
could die, I guess, but whatever. It sounds fun.
Nah.
Yeah, there is like that kind of naivety, I guess, to it at the very beginning here, especially since you hear, a slightly different rendition of this near the end of the album. Yeah, this is just like, let's just everyone just marching, getting ready, talking about all the great things that they're gonna get, spoils of war.
Well, then he's saying too, like, I want to be in the cavalry. So he's just saying like, I want to be part of it. I want to be right. On the front lines.
He does. Well, and he does. That's part of what the song does is he is specifying like he doesn't want to do a Navy ship. He'd be sick. He said, I'd be sick in a Navy ship. Not a good foot soldier. I'd sour and slow at the march. And then he's like, he'd rather be on the cavalry. He'd rather be on a horse.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows exactly what he wants. He knows what he loves. He loves horses and the horse cowboy life or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the things I really like about this song, and I'll say up front that like I don't have like I'm one of the least musical people there is. I took piano lessons for 6 years and I just couldn't do it. So I don't really understand music theory, but I have often kind of been trying to learn.
I'm
like
sure you probably picked up some stuff.
I've
right?
picked up stuff in terms of trying to understand what I like about music, and I don't know how you exactly would label it, but I really like those. Like this song is a very kind of like densely packed like internal rhyme scheme, where you have the rhymes within the lines.
Yeah.
It's almost like an
very
AAE, BBE, CCE, DDE or something like
kind
that.
of limericky almost.
Yeah, it has a real like rollicking flow to it. And actually there's another Canadian artist who would be very well known to a lot of Canadians, maybe not to you, but that's Stan Rogers.
Okay.
And he's been given a like posthumous partial songwriting credit on this track because the melody, like the tune of it is really and I think the rhyme scheme too is like really close to his song The Idiot, which is another fun song. And I don't know how like intentional that was, if it's sort of an homage or if it was like, whoops, we accidentally ripped this off, we gotta like kick some of the royalties over so we don't get in trouble. I couldn't find the answer to that question, but it's very close if you've heard both songs.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say it feels like. I mean, I was wondering if it was maybe even based on an even older thing because it does kind of feel almost like a folk standard type of thing. Like, I mean, I didn't see that in the notes that it was like a old folk song, but like it definitely feels like it. So yeah, if anyone knows of an older folk song that even shares some of these similarities, let us know. We can go further back because that's the thing about this style of music sometimes. Is that it is, copied so many times that like sometimes the origin is even gone.
Yeah.
But who knows if this is that situation?
There is sort of that. So in the notes for, I just pulled the Wikipedia page for the song The Idiot by Stan Rogers. And the song contains the quote, knuckle dragging beat characteristic of Morris dance tunes. And so Morris dancing is like a form of English folk dance. And it has to do with... I don't know, something to do with like rhythmic stepping and stuff.
Oh yeah. I can imagine the scene actually right now. Everyone's clomping their feet and like dancing around.
Yeah. So I think you are picking up on something.
A few movies like that. Yeah. And cool because like I mean that's something that David. What? I don't know call you David.
What?
Weird. Dave was talking about is that you could see this being done by like an Irish punk band maybe.
There's a local band, the Kissers, that started as like a Pokes cover band, but they kind of went bulky, but they go back and forth. They do acoustic sets, but they do
Yeah.
electric sets. But I have like this song, and there's a few more that had a very Kissers feel. Like I could just see them up there, like just the exact same band, almost the exact same song, just coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
as soon as you said
this
the
track
Pogues,
was
I'm like,
really
oh, that
good.
sounds right. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's where I mean, the accent thing kind of I'm talking about. Like that's, I think, partially the accent I'm looking for, and then it's partially the Southern American accent.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So like, yeah, there's a little bit of that. Yeah. Like you were saying, there's a lot of variety here. There's various different country and folk stylings to tell a story.
Mhm. There's another interesting through line through the album too with so I mentioned like in his bio there that he did study history, and like one of the things I like about this compared to a lot of I guess I'll say mainstream country music is that you can really get the sense that this person has read a book. Like the lyrics are really packed with references, and it's one of the resources I looked at kind of just going over this album and making some notes on it was on the Genius lyrics. A lot of people making annotations, and they'll kind of flag all of these little references that otherwise I wouldn't have like necessarily understood what they were.
Oh yeah, we love Genius on this podcast. I have it up right next to the Zoom.
yeah, and I did end up fact checking some of them because I'm like, well, this is just somebody writing a note. But yeah, there's
we've gotten some wild Genius notes before. Some of them have nothing to do with the music.
This album has some very opinionated ones I don't necessarily agree with, but yeah, like in this song,
sometimes someone will like go through and like they have like a narrative for the album, and like every track they're like tying that narrative together to the last one, you know?
Yeah. Like there's a commenter I think on this album's like many Genius notes who seems like really leaning into trying to connect everything to the U.S. Civil War, and there are a lot of
there's a few, but
but it's definitely, I would say, really trying to hearken like kind of like 19th century warfare in general. And there's stuff that kind of, I think, pulls from the Napoleonic Wars and like just other ones happening at the same time.
Yeah, actually, why don't we get into that? The second track, the next track. Yeah, the second track is pretty much all about that. So let's move into Horse Soldier, the titular track of the album. And this really goes through literally like all of the like variations of horse warfare you can think of. So here is Horse Soldier.
I'm a Cossack on the run. I'm a horse soldier, timeless through and through. Well, I knew my days were numbered when o'er the trenches lumbered. More modern machinations still again.
I like that you picked that bit there too, because there's, I think I've noted 3 distinct times on the album where he switches language mid-sentence.
Oh yeah.
So you have, so earlier in this song you have like with a crack flanking maneuver, I'm in Ulan alles über, which is switching to German mid-sentence.
Okay.
And then with
I wonder what that was.
Yeah, I found I really got a lot more out of this album when I actually like started digging into the lyrics, because there was some things I would hear and I'm like, what is he saying?
There's a lot of Genius notes too with this one, like just each like just a word there'll be a note. So
so like an Ulan is I think a specific terminology from the German or like Prussian military. And I think it just means like cavalry, and then like alles über means like overall. So he's just sort of like
well, like you said, this guy seems to like he reads because
he's read a book.
He's read at least a book.
Yeah,
because it definitely seems like he is like referencing very specific moments in history, in each of these verses, and I love that it's all kind of, I like these kinds of tracks where they kind of tie, a lot of things throughout history together. I can't think of a whole lot of examples. Oh wait, we didn't start the fire. Weirdly.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of like this.
I can kind of see that connection.
Yeah, little bit. I just it's just a really cool, I guess executed concept song.
I think another interesting thing is if you kind of read it critically is that a lot of the references that are being made are often kind of like misconceptions or like historical myths. And I don't know like what level of self-awareness that's being done with.
You see, I don't know enough of these particular instances, but
even just pulling from the Genius notes, like the mention of the Saladin and his swift Arabians harassing doomed crusaders on their heavy drafts. And I should also mention, I don't know anything about horses other than like maybe what I've learned through listening to this kind of music. And there's a note that's like, well, like what we consider a draft horse didn't exist then, but at this during the Crusades, they would have been riding on a precursor of what we consider now draft horses.
Oh, yeah. So it's like modern terminology for...
Yeah, the same with Percheron, which is like a type of draft horse. And they're like, it would have been on the ancestors of it.
Yeah. He probably had like a list of like horses that he needed to kind of check off throughout the album or something. I don't know. If I was writing,
artistic license too, because again, he's rhyming internally. He's rhyming like... He's stretching to rhyme Percheron with Saracen, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
And this is a good time to ask because one of the reasons I have grown to really enjoy this album more over time is that through listening to podcasts, I've become much more of a history nerd, including like a military history nerd. I don't know if you've ever listened to Lions Led by Donkeys.
I don't think I have. I did listen to the hardcore history. I've heard a little bit of.
Yeah, it's really good as a military history podcast about a lot of like the sillier or more like failure based episodes of history and what he's likely referenced
about.
Yeah, like or just like when somebody just fucked up real bad, or there's a lot of like through lines that tie it together. And so what it's referencing here is probably the Battle of Hattin in late 1187, and they did an episode on that, and it kind of glosses over by saying like doomed crusaders, but like these were guys that like went into the desert without any water, and like it was an absolute clown show. It's a really that's my first like Lions Led by Donkeys recommendation of this.
That's like the Germans going into Russia or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
what, you got cold over here?
You're going right into their turf, bro. I don't know what you're thinking. Okay. Interesting. So you get everyone. If you want a history lesson, just literally read the lyrics and read the Genius notes for the lyrics, because there's a lot to go through.
Yeah, like another really fun one there is the quote about like firstest with the mostest, which was attributed to Nathan Bedford Forrest. But basically, he said in like proper English, like
Forrest Gump.
Yeah. And where he talks, so I think someone was asking him about like, well, why'd you win this battle? And he's like, well, I came first with the most soldiers, but it was like a northern newspaper that was misquoting him on purpose to make him sound more like backwards and dumb and hick-like.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that really sticks. And like, there's a bunch of other, I think the other big one that's a misconception that I took note of is, this is happening in the fade out, so you barely hear it, but he mentions like Polish lancers charging German tanks.
Yeah.
Which is actually not true and comes from Nazi propaganda because they were trying to portray the Poles as backwards.
Oh, interesting.
Because the Nazis thought that Slavs were subhuman. But there was an interesting note here from a historian who was talking about it, and he said, such myths have also been embraced by the Poles themselves as symbol of their wartime gallantry, achieving a cultural resonance in spite of their variance with historical record. So basically, it's like people kind of embrace the propaganda because it's like, well, isn't it also kind of like extremely brave to charge a tank on horseback, even though it didn't ever really happen?
When I heard it, actually, it reminded me of the hardcore history I listened to, which was about World War I. And it's from like, soldiers' journals and stuff all the way through. And like, I was thinking he was referencing the fact that at the beginning of World War I, there were still soldiers that were using like horseback and using like, that kind of technology, but it quickly became like outdated as, the modern technology took hold and they learned what modern warfare was. You know what I mean? So I thought maybe it was like a slight reference to that a little bit. But like you're saying, there's also that added propaganda connection, which is maybe he's doing both a little bit.
I was gonna say too, because when we first listened to this song, we thought it was like about I thought specifically that it was about like the spirit of warfare in general.
Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden, like it kind of gets to that changeover of World War I, and we were like, oh, this is kind of about the spirit of horse warfare and how like it kind of died away after,
and now it's something
like World
different.
War I, and now it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
Don't bring your horse to a tank fight.
Exactly.
Yeah, never bring your horse to a tank fight. That's pretty much the lesson here.
Yeah, and I think there were some like actual examples of like kind of in the early days of World War I, like militaries figuring out that horses weren't what they used to be anymore at all.
Yeah. It didn't make sense to like kind of get into a square column and like march to the front line.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to do that anymore.
Yeah, but the idea that this happened in 1939, which is what people reference when it's like, you know, specifically with the Polish military, like just flat out never happened, because we'd already learned those lessons, and like the Poles did have tanks and all that. But anyway, we don't want to get too bogged down into the military history.
Oh yeah. I mean that's a whole other podcast, you know,
whole other podcast.
Or just playing the game of Civilization.
That's true. Yeah, you can get the speed run.
But there is one very local reference in this one when it says, so the verse that is like, I've worn the Mounties crimson. If you'll silent, then you'll listen. You'll know that it was with them that I stood. When Mayerthorpe, she cried as her 4 horsemen died, gunned down in scarlet, cold as blood. So this is a reference to something that happened in 2005.
Oh, wow.
And Mayerthorpe is actually, it's in central Alberta. It's about 90 minutes from where I'm sitting now by driving.
Wow.
And it was, so he's sort of using like analogy to refer to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who do not actually patrol around on horseback anymore, despite what the genius annotator said there. But it was these cops that were raiding this guy's farm. Interestingly, now looking back at it, a big part of what they were doing was like confiscated cannabis plants, which like it's much more legal now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was pissed off at the cops and he like fled his farm, and so the cops were going around searching, and then he got his friends to drive him back with a rifle, and then he went and dug out his G3 semi-automatic rifle and gunned down 4 cops.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it was
son.
I'd kind of memory hold that for a long time, and out of respect for the fact people died here, I won't really give my opinions on policing in general, but it was like a very shocking thing that happened, and it was like big. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, especially if it's
life,
close to you, if you're nearby, like you're going to remember something like that.
Well, at that point, back then I got my news through the newspaper and I read it often. I just remember it being
What's a newspaper? 2
solid years of front page headlines that were always talking about this. Yeah, I got really rabbit holed into that, reading about that story in Wikipedia today, but that's another story for another day.
That must have been just flashbacks. That's crazy. But yeah, so this next track we got for you is Lament for Lester Cousins. I don't know if you have any context for that, but here it is.
Sad one.
His life and home was shattered, and his wife and daughter battered, when the kind he knew so well came back around. An incontainable aggression induced Lester.
Poor Lester.
Poor Lester.
Now, for those keeping score, this is what it was interesting to me about this as, a concept album, is that it's not like a tight concept album. Because there's 15 tracks on it, and by my count, there's 5 of them that are not about horses or soldiers or both.
Yes. There's like side C is very like
anti-horse.
Has nothing to do with any horse.
Yeah. So this one is our first non-horse, non-soldier song, and this is actually
I didn't actually notice that. But
yeah,
right.
it always kind of bugged me because I was like, you're so close to really having a concept album here, and another project I did, and maybe I'll throw you that link later, you can put it in the description, is I made a Spotify playlist where I removed those 5 songs from this album and threw in 5 other Corb Lund songs, because he has, if you can believe it, a number of songs about horses and soldiers on his other albums. So I kind of built my own concept album.
I mean, if it's in the family, I suppose maybe it's just a
It was probably the album more songs about horses.
More songs, more horse soldiers.
There's a lot of horse songs for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we'll have a tighter concept in the description, concept album version of this too. That's very cool.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I find that these, just on their own too, a lot of these 5 songs that are not horses, not soldiers, or to me, just they don't land as much. They don't interest me personally as much.
Yeah. I really enjoy them for the just the kind of stories they're telling, you know, because the thing is, like,
this one is a good story. It's a sad one, but his song is a good story.
Yeah, Corb seems to really get that part of like folk music is the storytelling.
Well, especially I think you've talked about this doing, I don't remember which, but I think it was another country album. It was an episode of yours I listened to.
Yeah.
And you're kind of talking about like this concept of old school country, which is to me like very pre Garth Brooks, pre Shania Twain. I was listening actually.
Of those.
Yeah. Recently I went onto Spotify and they have like playlists of like the radio stations from like Grand Theft Auto games. And I was listening to the country station from San Andreas, and like you hear this older country and you're like, this is so different. And one of the things that really jumped out to me is like a big theme for a lot of that classic country is that like the protagonist of these songs, whether it's supposed to be like the singer or a character, is that they're like really tragic figures.
Yeah.
And that's to me like a staple of the genre. And I think this really holds well to that kind of old school.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
definitely.
This is definitely about a tragic figure.
Yeah. This is a figure that's falling, going to, the what's the bottom of the barrel, when you hit the
basin, the nadir, the
no. When you're at like the bottom rock bottom.
Oh, okay.
That's the term. Sorry. This is like, he reaches fully rock bottom, like a Job type situation. His wife and daughter get involved in this horrible situation because he gets involved with like some wild dudes. Sorry, I'm just looking through the lyrics.
And while you're doing that, I think it had been mentioned one of your previous episodes, but like some or all of you have experiences like playing in bands, or what's your kind of background there?
I was in a band for a while. You did some.
I did high school band, middle school band,
and Dave just knows a lot about.
I just
bands.
had friends in bands. I know a lot of people in bands.
I
just always liked music.
Yeah.
So maybe some of you might be able to correct me if I get any of the terminology wrong. But what I think is interesting musically about this song is that it has like up tempo verses with like a down tempo chorus.
Yeah.
That'd be a way to describe
despite not being a very up tempo lyric.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's got that juxtaposition going on. And actually in the next track there's another thing he does, which is he uses pitch change. He in a couple of these songs he like goes up in pitch the next verse, and then the next verse goes up in pitch a little bit.
Little changes I think allow you to get away with a lot more verses without feeling repetitive.
Yeah. And I don't know if I got that in this clip, but here is a clip of that next song. Brother Brigham, Brother Young.
Send me over the rim of the basin, Brother Brigham, Brother Young. The rim of the Salt Lake Basin, Brother Young. For water cannot save me, Brother Brigham, Brother Young. Baptismal water cannot save me, Brigham Young. My sins are just too deep to die, oh Brother Brigham, Brother Young. My sins are just too deep to die, oh Brother Young.
I had to highlight that bass, man. That bass is just killing it in that track.
Yeah, I love that sound of like the upright bass.
Yeah, and it's like it's on like the mic it's being recorded on is just perfect. You can hear everything,
Yeah, see, that's stuff I'm interested in learning about too. Is I've had people who like know a lot about music explain that like sometimes what you like about these songs is not just like what they're playing and how they're playing it. It's everything down to like the microphones they're using to pick it up.
Yeah. We've learned that a lot, like covering like, Beach Boys stuff and like, some of those early where they were kind of figuring out the tools, like the amount of
placement.
Yeah, mic place, the amount of effort it used to take just to get one of these on tape, When you can finally like hear those little bits, you really start to kind of have a new appreciation for music in general, I think. But
so there's a bit of context for this one too.
Yeah.
So there is actually a pretty decent population of Mormons in Alberta, especially southern Alberta. And one of those things that was mentioned in the intro was like his grandma teaching near Cardston. And Cardston is a town that was actually founded by like members of the LDS church that came from Utah. And it's like 80% Mormon, and it's been a dry town for over 100 years.
Wow.
And it's definitely the only one in the province.
Yeah. So I have a connection to the Mormon church. I've probably talked about it a few times on this podcast, how my ancestors were some of the first people in the Mormon church.
Oh, okay.
And I actually did look it up this time because I wanted to find out, like, okay, what was the first Mormon and in my family? And apparently it was like, I think 5 years after he got it going in the New York area. So he was part of like the first version of the Mormon church. This
batch one.
Alonzo LeBaron is the first Mormon in my family. And then, a lot of basically my section of the family stayed here in the Midwest. And then all of the Mormons of our family moved out to Utah. So we have a lot of LeBarons out there.
So then when you were listening to this song, did you get a lot more like recognition when you're like, I know what that's about.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know too much. I mean, I guess I do know a decent amount about Mormonism just because of this connection and having like, looked into it. I also just enjoy, religion in a scholarly way in general, but like, I didn't know some of the things in it though. Like I didn't know that they were also so like racist. I guess I could have guessed that they would also have the racist stuff going on.
Oh yeah, I have a good note for that.
There's some. I mean, and that's what I kind of enjoy about this track though is like it's singing it like he's singing it like this is a praise song and like it's a positive thing about Mormonism and Brother Young. But he's actually, by the end of it, highlighted all of the kind of negative, toxic qualities that he sees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that I've used in trying to compliment an artist like Corb Lund. Is like something that he does. You just don't see a lot of in country. Is that he uses like subtext. Like there's more than one layer to a song. That's
what it's called. Subtext. That's
really what it is.
I almost forgot.
Yeah. And this one is like, it's so densely packed with references, but unlike just on a personal level, unlike some of the more military history ones, like I don't care about this one as much. It doesn't like interest me, the Mormon history. Although I found this one genius note, you might've seen it, really interesting.
Yeah.
Where he mentions like, oh, my fourth wife has some color, and like very bold word choice by him on the previous line.
Yeah.
And, but basically, according to this poster, I didn't fact check this one, but according to Brigham Young's own teachings, quote, the punishment for black-white interracial marriages was death, and the killing of a black-white interracial couple and their children as part of a blood atonement would be a blessing to them.
Yeah.
Cool dude, Brigham Young.
Yeah. So about that blood atonement stuff, the most infamous Mormon from the LeBaron family, Ervil LeBaron.
Oh, hell yeah.
He was the one that went off and made like a cult in Mexico, and,
like a different cult that isn't Mormonism,
because they weren't allowed to practice polygamy anymore in the area they were at. So he was like, fuck this, I'm going to go down to Mexico and keep doing polygamy.
He did one of those.
The local
like
Catholics
sets, right?
loved that. And he
big idea, Brad.
Basically, he started a murder cult with blood atonement being one of those things. He had like a list of his like enemies. Basically, he was like a mob boss kind of guy. Crazy stuff. Anyway, I hate that he's the most famous LeBaron when you Google LeBaron.
Oh, damn.
But
Don't
worry,
Brad, you got a few years. You'll be the most famous.
I know, right? I just have to keep doing this so I can surpass his popularity. So
he has to save
his
family name.
Murder cult when they see LeBaron on Google.
Yeah.
So.
Or you could get really famous. You could get really famous for doing a lesser crime, like. That might be easier. Like you could just kind of like violently assault one person. It might get you to the top of SEO and like
SEO.
On the whole, it's better for your family name.
Yeah. Exactly. That's pretty smart.
Because I think the greatest way to put shame on your family name is to have a podcast show up. But
such truth.
We'll just bootleg a bunch of New Glarus beer across state lines, like Smoking the Bandit style.
Dude, hell yeah. I would absolutely do that.
Oh yeah, do a cool crime. That's actually a great idea.
Yeah. That'd be badass. But we do have to get caught at the end. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed this song just because of the Mormon aspect and the weird connection that my family has to that neck of the woods. Yeah, I guess I also didn't notice that this one wasn't necessarily about horses. I feel like this, when I was listening through to this, track 3 and 4 for me were like, I guess, character development tracks, if there is a character, you know.
Yeah,
I don't think there
these
is
are two I
necessarily,
flagged as these are 2 of the 5 that I flagged are just not about either. But you can, if you include if you expand your list of topics to be horses, soldiers, and Mormons, that covers actually 2 more songs that mention Mormons.
That's true. You just had to add Mormons to the list. Yeah. But
just always add a Mormon.
Yeah, there's so many of them. Anyway, here's another track called "The Horse I Rode In On."
Back to the horses.
Yeah, back to the horses. You know, we gotta get back to it eventually. It's in the title. Yeah, you guys have heard the phrase. What screws?
Are you deciding whether or not to
swear? Rode in on? Is that the phrase? Screw you and the horse you rode in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people might say "fuck you," but it's however you
want to do it. Yeah. That's the more blue version of it.
Yeah. Well, we had to break the seal at some point.
We had to. Yeah.
Ah,
fuck me. Here's the horse I rode in on.
He was a big sorrel gelding with a golden streaked mane, a silver mounted saddle and hand braided reins. He had one blue eye that was clear like the rain, but the horse I rode in on felt none of my pain.
Oh wow! I think I just realized that's my dog dreaming. By the way, don't be alarmed. He's chirping away there. But I just realized something about this song though. This is talking about how the horse is in no pain, and then you get a song later where it's like kind of focusing on the horse's pain.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like how I Want to Be in the Cavalry and the reprise for that are kind of 2 sides of the coin, you know? I think this might be this first side of the track 13. I'm not going to say the title of the track because that's a spoiler.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
But yeah,
this one is one of the ones I wrote a note like this song has subtext because nominally, like ostensibly, the song is about a horse, but it's not really about a horse at all. You know, it's using it as a framing device to talk about a failed relationship.
You know, I was honestly thinking it was about a horse. I've known people that are like just so into horses, like they might actually have a song about it. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, he does have songs like that, but I think one of the reasons this
but yeah, you're right. There is that. There's nothing compared to the heartbreaking pain that comes with the love that is withered in vain. You're right. Yeah.
Well, and it's like he kind of like slowly inserts the kind of the B story here of the relationship by degrees, because I think that, like, I don't have the lyric sheet in front of me, but I think that the very first stanza is just talking about the performance. And he kind of gradually sneaks in the more and more about the relationship. And I think the reason that it really heavily figures in that horse imagery and the kind of the very specific descriptions of like riding this horse and performing on it, because it wants to paint a picture of this kind of like cowboy person doing cowboy stuff. And then it kind of sets you up for like the punchline on this song, which is when he says, I didn't feel like no cowboy anymore anyway. Because he's saying like, you look like a cowboy, but I don't feel like a cowboy because, my heart is broken.
Well, maybe that's him being more of a cowboy than ever. You know what I mean? Like they're generally a pretty heartbroken bunch. I think that's maybe what he's starting to learn here.
And then you get another that, like I wrote that, like that line I think is a really perfect old timey country line. Like that was kind of turns of phrases they like to have. And again, it's about a tragic figure, right? I think it really fits into that, into that niche again.
What's the way he plays it too is very old timey country too, you know?
Yeah. Like that's a waltz, isn't it? Like when it goes dun 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 dun. Or am I kind of?
It could be. I think. I mean, I actually don't know off the top of my head, but it seems like it's in at least the ballpark. And I always think of it as like kind of the horse trot I guess when I'm hearing it in the context of like a country song. It feels like you're, swaying with the horses. It's just kind of
it's giving you like a loping feeling.
A little sway in action.
Yeah.
There's one of the things that this was another song I enjoyed more when I looked up the lyrics, because it was one where I would listen to it and be like, I don't know what he's saying here when he says he's a big sorrel gelding. So sorrel is a reference to like a certain coloration of horse.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the words that tripped me up when I was younger and didn't have Genius annotations to look up why they didn't like land with me as much. Like there's an earlier one where he says it's in the second track when he says a dragoon on a dun. A dun is also like a genetic reference to a certain type of coloration. And
well, yeah, that's what I
more that
kept finding when I ran to like a word that I didn't recognize. I was like, is that a horse? Probably a horse. So I was a big sorrel is one. Later we'll get to it, but there's painted horse is a type of horse. Yeah. So I think that when he was writing this, he had like a list of horses written down. Maybe his
I would imagine 5. When you grow up with them, like they're right on the top of your dome there. But
that's true. Maybe he just had that. Yeah, just in his head. That's possible. It does. I mean, you're saying he does have more. He has more horse songs. So I mean, he does clearly love horses. So yeah.
Now I had meant to ask at the beginning because I was like, well, I should probably temper my enthusiasm based on what they say. But I was just kind of curious, like, what your respective like did you like the album? Was like what was the thing I was kind of looking to hear from everyone.
Oh, yeah. I think I enjoy this album. It's like probably not something I'd throw on all the time, but it really reminds me of another good concept album we did that was The Extraordinaires Ribbons of War, which I feel like was a really solid concept album, like, really interesting ideas and well executed, but like just kind of got lost in the ocean of music that was coming out around this same time too. I think it was 2006 maybe for that album. This is 2007. But yeah, it really gives me that like indie kind of feel from that time. What do you guys think?
I really very much enjoyed it because I am a fan of old school classic country, and I grew up with 90s country all around me, and this really kind of gives me a feel of both, depending upon the song. Sometimes both a little bit.
Yeah.
So I very much enjoyed a lot of it.
Was it you who was saying on like the Chris Gaines album that you liked Garth Brooks, right?
I loved Garth Brooks. Yeah.
See, that's interesting because to me, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I blame Garth Brooks as one of the people who like invented pop country and kind of ruined the country that I like. So
I mean,
that's contentious.
Judging by the Chris Gaines stuff, I mean, there's a little bit of truth there, I think.
Well,
but
Chris Gaines saved country.
That being said, I have gained a lot of respect from Garth Brooks over the past couple of years myself.
You've gained?
I have gained because, like,
Chris
it
Gaines.
seems every time I have Chris Gaines, and he's going to put out more albums. Apparently, he's listened to our cries, as Chris Gaines. But no. One thing is though, it's like anytime I see him in the news or whatever, I'm generally liking what he's saying. You know what I mean? And I saw a documentary about the song American Pie, the making of, because that's a song that he plays a lot. He played a lot throughout his career or whatever.
Oh yeah, like the Don McLean song.
And he was good in the interviews for that too. So yeah, I when we first heard Garth Brooks, that was probably like one of the first times I'd ever even dived into him at all. But yeah, I think I get it. I get what people, I get it now. I think he's got charisma. He's got a lot of charisma.
Yeah,
he really brought rock in, and there's always been rockabilly, and country comes from rock, but he really kind of resplashed some rock into country, and but he didn't overly rock it. He just kind of brought like a rock persona with country music. And
sometimes
that was really cool.
Sometimes
and that's
literally
why he was that was why he was such an enigmatic stage performer. That's why he could rock fucking Central Park.
Yeah. He seems like a
motherfucker. Dave.
But yeah, Dave. What about this album, Dave? Corb Lund, not the other one. Yeah.
I enjoyed it as well. It had a lot of vibes I was pulling from. Like I said, it reminded me of like the local band Kissers on a couple tracks. There's one track that reminded me of like a little bit like, it wasn't country, but like just the way it was written, like Warren Zevon in a sense.
Oh yeah, which one was that?
And makes sense.
But yeah,
Werewolves of London. That's Warren Zevon.
I think it might be what that song means now. Maybe I forget. There was one that we really were like that one's.
The kind growing up, I love like Willie Nelson. Then I got turned on to long time ago, like Chris Christopherson, Merrill Hager, like just all the old Outlaw and even like Grant Parsons when he kind of started doing his own stuff, or with the Flying Burrito Brothers. I just kind of like that Americana music. Yeah. And there's like a wall. I'm not sure exactly what year it was that I just kind of like stopped. Yeah, it
wasn't appealing.
Like the sound just kind of changed. I'm like, I know what's happening. I'm just kind of done.
Yeah. I feel disconnected from this.
But no, this was solid. This is a great choice. I was digging it.
You were saying like when we were trying to put a label on it. Yeah. Like like Americana was one of the first.
Americana, American folk are kind of in the center
to your mind.
Yeah. Or maybe or apparently like American Canada.
Yeah, it's an Albertan Americana. I mean, in fairness, we are like the most American province. It's cold Texas. Listen,
the band, half of the band Texas was from Canada as well. And they made some of the greatest Americana music.
That's true. So. It's not the first one. But let's see what this next track is. The Imperfect Journey, and this one's about a foobar situation, I'll just say.
Yeah. And just real quick, the reason I did ask, because I was like, maybe they hated the album. But like this honestly is, if I had to do like a short list of some of my favorite songs just from anywhere, like this one would be on it, like The Horse I Rode In On. I just think it's so like, to me, it's pitch perfect in terms of what I like. Like it's got a little clever twist to it. It has a bit of subtext, and it's like, it's got just, it doesn't like have any fat on it. Like it just tells a perfect little like, self-contained story, and I just find it's really catchy too. So it's one of my absolute favorites tracks from anyone, and I'm not even a big country guy generally. So
okay, nice. Well, let's see what this Imperfect Journey is, and then we'll have a few more tracks before we get on to a break. Here is the Imperfect Journey.
Sorry,
Wait,
well, I tried my best to stop them. Yes, I tried to make them wait, and I appealed to their decency. Show mercy on this day. I issued them strong orders on pain of death and disarray, but in the end they would not listen. Raise their lances anyway.
Where are you seeing Imperfect Journey as a song title?
The Imperfect Journey.
Is that what your Spotify says?
Hold on, let me see.
So everywhere I've seen it, the song is called
On Losing Control. Oh no, this is what? Wait, why did I write Imperfect Journey?
I don't know. I was very baffled.
I have no idea why I wrote that.
It was a super secret hidden track.
Imperfect Journey. What the fuck? Okay. Anyway, continue.
I don't know. Were you listening to something else?
Usually I have like there's something that's a reason that but that's not in the lyrics at all. Like anyway, a leader on
This
Losing
is probably
Control.
a good time to make fun of you for, I know this is like years ago and you made a lot of changes since, but I had to back out of listening to your Rush 2112 episode because of like, it took you like 4 tries to notice you were playing the same clip over and over. And
we did that on purpose, actually. So thank you for falling for it. That's great.
I was going to say, there is a point where we're like, we have to come clean. We had to, these are all the same track. We came clean to the other 2 guests, so but it was one of those things.
You got to stick through the joke.
The pop. We to give an explanation to the listeners who might be all like you who are upset by that. Copyright made it so we could only play. It was all one track for the first half of the album, so you only play like 15-20 seconds of a track, for copyright
Is that something
reasons.
they can ding you for if you play a different sample? Because it's still cut into 15 seconds.
So that's the other thing. Copyright law is also extremely varied, and it doesn't seem like there is actually a core rule. It's like if you get caught for something, then it's a rule. That's what it seems to be. But But other than that, free use does cover like most of the ways that people use music and podcasts, like ours included. But yeah, it's a weird thing.
That's fair, I guess, because I was like, this is so baffling.
Well, I'm starting to get a lot flagged on Spotify now.
Like you mentioned, doing it through Spotify, which is probably not helping you. But this is also
because it was Anchor, then they sold to Spotify, and then Spotify has the technology to look for the music in stuff, you know. So yeah, definitely, it's harder, I think, now for music podcasts to do it, but like, you know, even 3 years ago, there was absolutely nothing looking for music in any podcast, you know.
That's interesting.
Because yeah, I've heard people play, you know, full albums, full tracks on podcasts, you know, like I've never heard of anyone before like a year or two ago getting any problems with it. But yeah, you know, that's YouTube also, you know, didn't used to have any of that. So that's, I guess, part of the medium growing up.
Times they are changing.
Yeah. But anyway, this is a leader on Losing Control. And this is one of the more interesting songs, I think, or you know, just stories in general. It's because it's, you know, it's a guy that's trying to kind of be the good man in this group of people that want revenge, want vengeance, and are lashing out at. I'm not sure if they're specific about who exactly, but. We can assume maybe in the context we're talking about, I don't know, Native Americans or people in different groups that they don't like. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting that on it. But the point is, he couldn't get them to stop. He could not get this group of people to stop their, you know, lashing out with vengeance. And he, in the end, kind of takes responsibility for all of it, which is just, I don't know. It's a good song about a soldier and a foobar situation, I think.
Yeah, it always read to me as very European, the way it like described the mercenaries. Especially them being referred to like specifically as foreigners. And because there's a lot of that would happen. Like one of the references being made, I think in Horse Soldier, like the song was about like mercenaries on hire from, he says Swiss or Sweden, but it was another misconception where like they were actually Finnish, not Swedish, but it was very specific like practice of borrowing like Swiss and Finnish mercenaries was like a very known thing during I don't know exactly what era, but as I said before, he pulls a lot from 19th century stuff here.
Well, and yeah, I mean, militia and military, or those kind of military for hire situations have, you know, kind of there's always been a version of that.
And I mean, I made a note here, like, you know, Machiavelli, when he wrote The Prince way back in 1513, he wrote about how mercenaries can't be trusted, you know. So imagine how foolish you would have to be to still be needing to like failing to understand this and needing to learn this lesson in 2023, you know. Anyone we've seen recently.
So yeah, it's a really, really interesting take on that situation.
This is the track that reminded me of a little bit more in Zevon, like Roland the Thompson Gunner, just like the mercenaries are going out and
Whereas, like, you know, earlier in the album we have track 1 where it's talking about, you know, the spoils of war and how excited everyone is and
everyone
all
gets
that.
a horse.
Yeah, everyone gets a horse to go up there to fight. And, you know, I guess the cracks are starting to show. I mean, I've already been showing, I guess, in what warfare can do. Yeah, I don't know.
There is sort of a, like, if it's what you're getting at, like over the course of the album, they kind of like the thematic songs do become almost bleaker and bleaker, like by degrees. And
definitely.
Yeah, I like the way you kind of mentioned it, like, it kind of transitions mid songs. Like it starts by setting you up with that very like old timey Prussian military sense of honor thing where, you know, he's talking, like, it really, really tees it up for the sort of the punchline, I guess you'd call it at the end, where, you know, he's leaning so heavily onto, like, you know, these people are so subhuman. These people are so, like beyond hope, and then kind of caps it off with, well, yeah, like it's my fault because I'm the officer, and that's our sense of nobility.
A sense of duty, which is like, you know, in the end it doesn't really matter that much, I don't think, but you know, it's him kind of, you know, following through with his kind of character that's been established here.
Yeah, and as you listen to more Corb Lund overall, like it's definitely a technique, or you might even call it a gimmick, that he comes back to a lot, is having a song that has something of a punchline, like where you're building up to something and then he kind of drops one line on you at the end that kind of twists it, which, you know, it's I think it can be hard to pull off. Like it can feel kind of gimmicky. I think it works well in this song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how he does that with the song structure too, because there's not a real chorus in this song.
That's true.
There's just that he's oh-oh-ohing the melody of that last line, but he doesn't say it. He just sets you up with a melody over and over. And then at the very end pops it in as a standalone line. So spoke a leader in losing control. And that's sort of. Have you heard of the Bandits of the Acoustic Revolution? I have not.
It's a Streetlight Manifesto side band, and they have a similar sound as like this track. They only ever put out an EP, but it was really, really tight. And honestly, a track with a similar message as what we just heard.
Interesting.
But
you have to send that to me.
Yeah, I think that this. Okay, so this is this track called "The Imperfect Journey." Okay,
is it? I don't think that's a track that's anything.
Wait, what is? Hold on, no, at the top of no, hold on. Why is this? Okay, I see what's happening. For some reason, at the top of the Genius page, next to featured and all this other stuff, it has "The Imperfect Journey" next to the Genius logo, where I usually am looking for the title of the song when I'm titling these. So anyway, this is called Student Visas.
Oh, interesting. When you scroll up and down, it changes from, when you scroll further down the page, it puts the song title in.
Yeah. But that's usually where the song title is. So it's like, what are you doing, Genius? Anyway,
every song is the imperfect
every song. It's the imperfect journey again. Okay,
this is a concept.
It's all the imperfect journey. The same track over and over again.
I mean, the whole concept could be described as an imperfect journey. You know, it's imperfect because of the songs that aren't thematic, and
maybe this is
there is a bit of a narrative journey, at least.
It's
just like that Rush album.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Rush all over again. But yeah, here's a little bit of kind of flash forward to the future from all the other kind of conflicts we've been talking about. This is Student Visas, touching on some Reagan era warfare.
There ain't no fun in killing folk, and I ain't gonna do no more. Well, I never did heal upright from injuries sustained. Officially in Germany, officially while we trained. I remember all their faces, I dream about them still.
Definitely spoilers in that preview.
Yeah. Trigger warning, by the way. I should have said that at the beginning of this episode for people with PTSD. But that song in particular definitely gets into some of that, like, just awful PTSD feeling stuff and not understanding why you're doing what you're doing, or, you know, just the whole just confusion and fog of war, I guess.
Vietnam all over again.
Yeah, and this one, like the line, of course, you know, it was communist, but it was kind of hard to tell, is what he keeps saying throughout the song. It's kind of hard to tell, which is like, you know, the last thing you want as a soldier is, you know, a vagueness in who your targets are, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think what it's really trying to get at is, I'll note that, like, Corb Lund's actual politics are a bit hard to pin down. I don't know, we can talk more about that later, but I think that it's especially interesting coming from country, a genre that you really associate with conservatism and sort of like glorification of like the US and its military and all this. I think it really it's very effective in kind of reminding you through the whole song that, like, you know, you're being told there's a cause, there's a purpose. This is all, it's very important that you have to be killing communists. But from the narrator's perspective, it's like, well, they just look like people. It's really hard to tell.
That line communists always, don't have horns or whatever. Like,
because that line is always followed by "There ain't no fun in killing folk," and I think that's really what I think. You know, having put together a very large playlist of bleak war songs, and this being one of them. What really sticks out about this one is, a lot of the time, the when people write these really like bleak anti-war songs, they focus on how much it sucks to die, how much it sucks to have your friends and your family die.
Yeah.
How what it's like to have, like, I don't know, your country in ruins, or just to like, well, how bad it sucks to be wounded or get diseases.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few that really explicitly says like it doesn't just suck to like lose and die. Like, it sucks to win, because killing people sucks and it will haunt you.
You know, and I think that we were getting a lot of, I mean, you know, the most popular version is probably, you know, American Idiot or something, like talking about, you know, the Iraq War and stuff. But like, I think this is definitely kind of bringing back some memories of other songs where it's like, this is kind of the focus. Like Yellow Card's got a good song about how, you know, he was 2 weeks from 20. You know, there's you know, a few bands that are focusing on this, because I'm assuming they're having friends or family that are coming back from, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's bringing back up maybe some of these thoughts and ideas, because, you know, I don't know, there's definitely a handful of things that are, you know, a response to that, as far as how they're speaking about soldiers and veterans.
Yeah. And I mean, this song, I will also note, is like, along with The Horse I Rode In On, is just a favorite song of mine across all music. Like, it just really, it just really speaks to me. I think it's just so effective as an anti-war song, and kind of taking you out of, you know, looking at in terms of like size, and looking at in terms of like, this is just miserable for everyone involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's you said it was like a jump forward in time. I think it's clever how he kind of quickly makes that cavalry connection at the beginning, where he says, you know, my great rode at Shiloh, you know, famous U.S. Civil War battle.
Okay, he does.
And Grandpa drove a tank, sort of like armored cavalry, and he says Daddy was air cavalry with choppers in Da Nang. So
yeah.
And
this is a regular Lieutenant Dan. Like, this is
yes,
this is a guy's whole family is involved. You know.
Mm-hmm. That's right, exactly. Yeah. And I think this is another interesting example of like, so he's written this character is clearly American, right? Like, he's definitely it's sort of implied he's fighting for he's doing special ops for the CIA. And you know, he references the US Civil War and the Vietnam War, and I think it's interesting how believably and like effectively he can write a song that's very Canadian, but write a song like this that's very American. Like, it's just part of what makes him kind of versatile to me.
Yeah. I am always amazed, actually, when I find out that like one of the most like American songs has a Canadian at the front of it. I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. Cool.
And this is an interesting one in terms of the history too, because basically the premise of this song is that the narrator is, you know, doing this kind of clandestine work. It's being tied to Iran-Contra and stuff. He doesn't explicitly say, but it's like, what we know for sure is like the CIA was involved in at least supporting the Contras in Nicaragua. Like, it's not, I did a bunch of digging to see exactly.
Well, stuff gets declassified at some point, you know? So yeah.
So in terms of like whether there were ever actually like people in like combat positions, like potentially getting wounded, that's not clear, but like definitely there was like logistical and financial support. But I think it's a
good addition, inclusion, I think, in the overall album, you know?
To bring you to a different period of time and kind of like tie them all together.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, there's a few other things that I noted here. Like, this is the other time he switches languages mid-sentence. That also took me a while to understand before I looked at the lyrics, because he says he stages out a Hondo at Este del Salvador.
Oh, yeah.
So that's very like nimble local switch up he does. Yeah, I believe it means like east of Salvador.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
And there's a really good, we were just talking about that line about like, you know, they said he's fighting communists, but it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
I really like what the genius annotator did on this song. You know, someone was going hard on this one, and they put pictures in their note, and they have like a picture of Contras, and then they have a little caption, and they have a picture of the Sandinistas. And it says, above are Contras, below are Sandinistas, the people the narrator has been sent to kill. Can you tell the difference? And it's like, they all just kind of look the same.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Damn, dude. He is going hard in these fucking comments. But yeah, I was gonna say though, with that, why don't we take a quick break though, and then we can get back because yeah, this is where it gets into another kind of stage of the songs that are not necessarily about horses, right?
Yeah.
The next track is the next track about horses. Anyway,
no, the next three are the other three that are not.
Yes.
Involved.
So yeah, when we get back on the other side of the break, we'll have the Imperfect Journey. Just kidding. What that song means now is the track. But yeah, we'll see you guys on the other half of the break of the album concept hour. Welcome back, everybody, to the album concept hour. I am here on the other half of this to talk about the other half of this album, Horse Soldier. And like we said, this next track doesn't necessarily involve the horses, but it's a song. This is called What the Song Means Now. What that song means now.
Well, my legs have both been shattered, and I know what that song means now. My sons have both been slaughtered, and I know what that song means now.
He knows what that war means now.
Yeah. I really like this one because this one feels like his like Bob Dylan song to me, you know? I can imagine, I can totally just hear Bob Dylan singing the whole thing and everything. But
this one has always kind of been the most forgettable track for me.
Yeah.
Like I do like the whole album. I don't think there's a song I dislike, but this one is like, has always just kind of been noise to me. This is probably the most closely I've looked at it was when I was trying to do notes on all the songs. And it's interesting hearing about, or like when you look at the lines of like, my legs have been shattered, you know, my sons have been slaughtered. I'm like, well, maybe he is trying to connect it to the soldier thing. I'm not sure. I'm still not really sure.
Yeah, I would think so.
Ironically, I'm not sure what this song means. So,
well, yeah, I think that again, like, I mean, if you look at the other songs, just as kind of like, you know, character development for whatever soldier characters are in the story, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there definitely is like an argument to be made that there is like a particular soldier that is kind of learning these experiences through the years, or maybe it's just kind of I guess a faceless soldier thing where like it's all different stories, but it's all kind of the same story too, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question because there's like I don't think there's like any genius annotations on this song. I didn't see. I think there's another track later on where a guy has legs amputated, but I don't think it's the same character as in this track. You know what I mean? Like it's a slightly different story in like the reprise of I Want to Be in the Calvary. You know what I mean? Well, yeah, we can get to that song when we get to that one, I guess. There's also like he mentions like the Reveille, or and that's my French pronunciation, but he pronounces it like the Reveille, which is a military term as well, right? It's like the bugle thing they play in the morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because like Reveille is like literally French for wake up. So
okay.
But yeah, there were just I didn't see anybody else online interpreting it, and like one of the things you run into with a more maybe not more obscure, but less mainstream artist like this is like if you take a really, really popular artist, like another place I'll look is song meanings, song facts. People will compile stuff from interview, and there's just nothing for this album on those websites. So I didn't see anyone giving their take anywhere on what this song means. So
there's a few songs on here that have no annotations whatsoever. You know,
but he knows what that song means.
He knows
now,
what it means,
and that's important.
That's what I do enjoy about it. He knows what the song means now. Like it's just like, I mean, that's like kind of a sentiment I think anyone can have just listening to certain songs later in life, and they take different like, you know, meanings because of the things you've experienced, you know. I relate. I definitely relate. Throughout the years, songs change, you know.
There's another interesting irony here is that so after, was it the next is one of his albums later than this, he did a YouTube series where he talked about a specific song and maybe played part of it,
Okay.
And it was the name of the YouTube playlist that's on his YouTube channel is What That Song Means Now, where he talks about mostly songs from that one album, one or two older ones, but he does not talk about this one or any of the ones from this album. So we're still we're still high and dry on
Keep it a secret.
He's saving it probably for views or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Waiting for people to be clamoring at the gates. But I hope that he talks about some of them, because this next track, Hard on Equipment, Tool for the Job, I'd definitely like to hear his explanation for. But here's another track. This is one of my favorites, I think, on the album because of personal reasons. Hard on Equipment, Tool for the Job.
Never read the manual, cause that's like cheating. He don't mind the grease on his hands while he's eating. Well, it's vice grips for pliers, and pliers for a wrench for a hammer's everything else. It just don't seem to make no difference. I sure do like him, but he's hard on equipment.
This is just so classic country, even tinging in a little bit of like some of the stuff that got brought back in the 90s a little bit, you know. It's that
blue collar
sound,
very blue collar.
It's very twangy.
And I do handyman work as one of my side gigs. And I'm not nearly on the level of like, using stuff until it breaks or anything. I don't do that much. But like, I have a lot of friends, and like my brother is an electrician, and like, I have another friend that's like a woodworker. So this is a song. It's like, me and my friend were joking, like you could play this at like a job site and get all the workers like, really excited about just working and the doing the job. And this story about a guy that's hard on equipment. Like most job sites are going to have a guy that maybe fits that description, who's just like doing the work right or whatever, but he's always breaking stuff, I feel like this song is a real like just a working class anthem type of thing,
Yeah, and I think one of the
has
things
nothing to do with the concept of the album.
I feel that because Ted always said that, like, about me at Falbo's. I did the job right, but I was really hard on some of the equipment.
It's
just me.
It's relatable.
Yeah, isn't it great when you get to hear a song, you're like, this is about me.
Yeah, this is about me, man. Yeah, it's just so genuine. I don't know. This track, like, it doesn't necessarily feel like it belongs on this album, but
maybe after war came back and became a handyman.
Well, that's what I think. I feel like this section of the album is like kind of trying to, I guess get to the
back to life.
Back to life, back to normal things in life. Like, the next track's Family Reunion, for instance.
Like, I think that's kind of what my takeaway is with some of the songs. It's not necessarily pitched as a concept album, but like the way I look at it is like, well, it's so close to being one, and like there's nothing wrong with these other songs. I think they would go great on a different album, but like they don't quite fit this album. Like, especially this one is such a huge tonal shift, like from most of the previous tracks.
It's just
always weird when that one track doesn't fit the bill compared to like all the other tracks on that one album. Like, this is was this like a last minute ditch, or was it written like differently but recorded another way?
Was it for a different album and it ended up on this one?
It sounds right, so let's throw it on there anyway. It sounds like the rest.
It's
of
a fun track, though. I mean, I dig it.
I like that. I like that lyric there. A wrench for a hammer, hammers for everything else. I definitely know people like that.
Yeah. At some point, you're just resorting to brute force,
and it's very frustrating if you do like. If you're the kind of person that does care about the gear you use, and it's true of like, so many things. If you know audio people, like if you mishandle their audio cables, they're not happy, and like it is so frustrating to be like, get like take care of your shit, like,
Some people are just wild with that stuff, man. They just don't.
This is the reason we can't have nice things,
Yeah. That's why people bring their own tools to the job site,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And this is definitely another example of where, like, as you listen to more of him as an artist, you would see like, oh, this is there's definitely a subgenre of his songs that are like corny, right? Like they're very silly
corny.
and
this
corny.
Is corny. I would say it's corny.
Yeah, for sure, in a good way. I think it's part of his charm on the whole. Like, there's, you could make, again, similar to making a little playlist album out of the, the horse and soldier songs. You could make a playlist out of the corny songs, and like that would suit a different mood as well, right?
Yeah. He's good at it,
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of corny, though, this one, I don't think this one's corny, but this one, family can be corny.
That's fair, because I said it was, or that's interesting because I said it was peak corny Corb Lund. That's the only note I wrote for it.
Okay, well, let's hear a little bit of it. This is Family Reunion.
You got the Mormons and the drinkers and the Mormons who drink. Well, pay attention, cause it ain't as simple as you think. They say there's some that don't believe in either, but I ain't met them yet, and my ma ain't neither. At the family reunion, she's gonna be a good one. So let me bend your ear, the clan's all here for the family reunion.
I'm really glad you clipped that part, because like it's just such a wonderful little line that feels very real. Like, like you got the Mormons, you got the drinkers, you got the Mormons who drink. Let's be real here.
And I love that you kind of have to do a double take. Like, wait a minute, that doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just what was it? Oh yeah, that's right. We pay attention because it ain't simple as you think. They say there's some that don't believe in either, but I ain't seen them yet, and my pa ain't either. So yeah,
which is a weird, like, mishearing the lyrics, because he absolutely says ma. They're like, it's not pa.
But, you're right. You're totally right. Yeah.
There's a bunch of things on the lyric websites where I'm like, what song were you listening to? But
hold on, I'm creating an annotation. Should be ma.
I don't know if it needs to be an annotation. I think you can change it, maybe. No,
I don't know.
I've never tried. I was literally sitting in my laptop today going over it and being like, I should fix this. And then next thing I knew it was 7:30, and
I have put a
shoulda.
I didn't spell should right, but I put should be ma.
That's fair. You can fix the typo after.
Yeah. People can go
fix
back
it in post.
Yeah, fix in post. Exactly. You know how it goes.
Yeah, this is kind of like a take on like a Hank Williams Jr. song a little bit, like Family Tradition, where he even kind of like sings it a little bit like they're like that too.
Or like Thank God I'm a Country Boy or something.
No, literally has a song
similar
called Family Tradition.
Yeah.
Where he talks about like him and his dad, and if you see me smoking, it's just a family tradition, and it just kind of even sounds like it.
Okay,
it's obviously his own take on it. And
maybe
really good country music here.
Yeah.
It's another great example of it.
Oh, and in the music video, he's cutting off all his hair. In the other music videos, he's got long hair, and this one he's trimming himself up to go to the family reunion.
I've never actually seen the music video for this. I've seen almost none of his music videos, but
I think there's 3 for this album. There's one for the first track, one for the track we just heard about all of the work stuff.
Okay,
they made a music video for that one.
The Cavalry video, but
but they did one that was about the work stuff, which is a really fun music video, I gotta say. And then this one.
So there's one thing I wanted to kind of highlight in it, because I think this is a really interesting thing in terms of kind of like sussing out who he is as an artist and just like reflecting on the genre in general. So there's a line where he says, my Blackfoot cousins say they're coming this year. Well, I hope they do, and I hope they bring beer. So are you familiar with the term Blackfoot?
That's is that a Native American group?
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because I've been learning about this a lot lately, where like a lot of the words that like are referenced to two different like Indigenous nations, at least in Canada, are like they're just straight up pulled from French. They're not related to what people call themselves at all, or some of them. There's one actually, I think, kind of in the Blackfoot family of people, like called. Well, they've stopped using the term Sarsi because it comes from a different, I don't remember which, but it comes from like a different group. And it was like, it's used as like a pejorative because it means stubborn in that language.
Okay.
So like, I think that's the Tsuut'ina Nation, but
there's still like a stubborn Native Americans not doing.
But this is from like a different group.
Okay.
So like, it was just like, who are these people? And they're like, oh, like those are like the stubborn people. And like, okay, we'll start calling them that.
Stuck. They're the stubborn people now. Yeah. So
there's still a like a major freeway in Calgary called Sarsia Trail, which is interesting. Like it's still named that. But it's definitely fallen out of favor. And so what's interesting about it is that Blackfoot is actually a literal translation of an endonym. So the in the Blackfoot language, the term is Siksika, but it's just like it is Blackfoot for Blackfoot.
Okay.
And so it's
I guess that's more of a 1-to-1, sounds like.
Yeah, it is. And it's part of the like a larger group. And I might be getting some of this wrong. I kind of tried to do the best research I could.
That's all right.
But the larger group that's like largely people speak the same, at least like family of languages, if they're different dialects, is the Blackfoot Confederacy. And their name for themselves is Niitsitapi. And like when you actually look into like what most endonyms are, they just mean the people. And that's what that one means.
Okay.
And the reason I thought it was interesting to drill down into is like country music in general has this sort of, if like at the bare minimum, like an implied sense of like connection to the land. Like you talk about, like how country you are.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, especially with it being like having at least a lot of like conservative traditions to it, like, often that connection to the land is made with zero reference to Indigenous people. And there's like a very scant amount of times that like Corb Lund does at least sort of like obliquely reference it. Yeah. But it's interesting because I was like, well, does he actually have Blackfoot cousins? And I couldn't find really a confirmation either way. Other than that mention.
This does seem to be of any of them maybe the most biographical. Possibly. Yeah, you're right. Because he mentions in the song, like, my family asked me, like, hey, you still playing in that band? So he's clearly doing self-referencing. And there's like a mention in that blurb I read at the very beginning about one of his grandmas like taught on like a Blackfoot First Nation, but there's no explicit mention that he has any kind of like mixed heritage. And that's something that we've definitely seen. Like a famous one was like Elizabeth Warren saying that she had she had some sort of thing, and then it was like not verified at all. And there's been like a few people who have done that over time. It's like it's sort of like stealing valor, where it's like you're claiming like an ancestry you don't have. So, I know a few folks like that. there's a part of my family that claims a little too much of that part of their ancestry. You know what I mean? But it's weird when you run into that. It's like it's a little more complicated than that.
That's funny.
But who knows what the situation is here? What are you gonna say, John?
No, that's funny because that was referenced. I think I was talking about it last week when I talking about reservation dogs. Like when one of the introductions to the episode, there's a spirit guide that like he's one of the funnier characters in the show. Yeah. And like he did that at the beginning, and he's like talking about like all the indigenous people, and then like one of the lines he uses. Oh yeah, and all the people, everyone's invited, and even the people that can trace their heritage, but can't actually but we're never actually part of the club anyways.
Come on,
referencing all the white people in particular that claim Native American heritage, but really it's null and void.
It's a very like complex issue, and. Because that's the thing. Like different tribes obviously have different requirements and different things that kind of classify you as being under their nation. So look into it. If you're one of those people we're talking about, just look into what you're talking about.
And I when I was trying to find an answer to the question, I didn't find anything, but I did find one person who did a little like blog post on it, and appropriately enough for us, like for white passing guys talking about it. This is like another white person writing this article, but I thought they kind of like phrased it in a way that I thought was really getting at like what I was thinking about. And I can drop the link later if people want. But this is what they said. Constructing narratives around a social identity means risking a certain cultural narrowness. The absence of Indigenous voices in Western writing in general is scandalous. This is especially true of Western songwriters outside of the possible exception of Johnny Cash. And Johnny Cash did like a whole album about like it was called like Stories of the American Indian or something like that. Given how much time Lund spends talking about himself as an Albertan, thinking about the province's history, and trying to update the West legends, it's surprising how little space he gives over to Indigenous people. So I thought that was an interesting take on it.
Yeah. But here's another track.
One other thing was this is another track. It's not on this album. I'd recommend checking out. He did a track on another album called "This Is My Prairie." And it's a really cool song about shooting at mining companies with an antique rifle. But
badass.
And he re-released a version of it with some collaborators recently because there's this big to-do in Alberta about the current extremely right-wing government wants to just strip mine for coal in this protected area in the Rockies and destroy it. And so he's very anti that.
Yeah.
And like I said, his actual politics are a bit hard to pin down. He did this video where he's talking about it. He was appealing to people, hey, we got to protest this thing that the government is doing. And he's not very eloquent as a speaker. And one of the things he says is oh, you know what? I'm not political. I just don't I don't trust any of the parties, which is sort of I don't know, kind of a cheap out, but so he doesn't really align himself something other than well, this matters to me personally. I don't think you should strip mine the mountains here. But it's also interesting to look at the lyrics of that song where he's saying my grandfather was on this land, my dad was on this land, this is my prairie. And I'm well, yeah, but whose was it before that? There's no mention of it.
Yeah.
It's
always the difficult part of that. Yeah.
Touching on that, what you're talking about with country artists, too, and the conservative aspect of it. You get that a lot where people are I've been on this land for 100 years, 150 years. I got ties. And it's well, just like you said, who was there before?
Yeah. You
think you're so righteous on this land because you were here for 100 years, but who was here for 1,000 before that? You know?
Yeah, anyway. So it's almost like the bar in country writing is unimaginably low. So he clears it just by mentioning in one line Blackfoot Cousins, and it's well, well, your competition is worse.
Well, so this next track we got for you guys, we got 5 more for you, and then we have a clip thing that you've brought forward. And this next track is Especially a Paint.
There's something about horses, especially a paint. Whenever I see horses, I see a path I didn't take.
That's a nice fade out.
Yeah. I like the end of that track. Yeah, this is kind of getting to the other side of what I was talking about earlier with the horses being in pain or not in pain earlier in the previous track. In this one, he says, whenever I see horses, I see sadness in their face. So it's kind of, taking it to a different place. One thing I'll say, I answer for a lot of horse doctors these days as my at-home receptionist work is. Horses have a lot of things to be sad about. I'll tell you that. They have a lot of maladies that apparently you need a whole doctor for, just dedicated to horses, like colicking. Their intestines get twisted up. They apparently get lame. It's an actual thing that horses get. They're severe lameness. Horses have a lot of things that can go wrong with them, apparently. Mm-hmm. So
even Corb Lund has
PSA, I guess.
He has at least 2 songs about horse vets. So
okay. Well, he's probably. If he's a horse guy, he's definitely met his fair share of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, the one song I highly recommend it. I think I put it on my horses and or soldiers playlist, but it's called "Horse Doctor Come Quick," and it's just about wanting to do the drugs that the vet has.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought it was going to be a sadder.
It's really good. No, it's
track.
also on. No, it's also on my drugs playlist. So
it's a party track.
Yeah.
It's great. You should really listen to it. It's
horse drugs are pretty strong. So
that's what I hear.
That's why people like horse tranquilizers.
I do have a severe case of lameness from time to time too.
Yeah, so. I definitely get that sometimes. Yeah, I relate.
Yeah, I need some ketamine for my lameness.
I'm so lame. I need ketamine. But yeah, a paint, by the way, in the title of this track is a type of horse. It's probably the most iconic horse, I would think. The just brown and white kind of, almost cow pattern.
Calico horse.
Yeah, calico horse, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, he also mentions pinto in this track, which is another like coloration term. So it's at least the fourth different like horse coloration he mentions in the album.
Yeah. Again, he's a fan. Obviously, he knows his stuff. A horsophile, yeah. And this is like pretty simple song though. Just another. Whereas that last one was maybe the other one was kind of maybe a love song towards a horse. This is like a I don't know, a longing or like what's the word? Grief song about a horse.
Mm-hmm. It's another tragic figure, you might even say.
Yeah.
There's another bit of terminology here that might be interesting to people. So he makes there's a line in here that says like from Chinook to Mountain View. And those are just names of small towns in Alberta. But the term Chinook, which like Americans might be familiar with as the name for the big fuck off helicopter that the U.S. military uses. So depending where it's from, it's either pronounced Chinook or Chinook, but it's used as a name for a sort of like warm wind that Southern Alberta is known for. I think in the Blackfoot language it's called something else and it means like snow eater. But that's like dope. The origin of
sounds way cooler.
Yeah, I don't remember what the Blackfoot term is. I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
But that's what it translates to. Yeah, because the term Chinook itself comes from like a group of people that still exists. It's in the like Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
So outside of Southern Alberta, there's other terms for warm winds. I think it's most commonly called, it's like a German term. It's pronounced like Finn or something.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Interesting.
Very cool.
Well, so this is definitely a certified horse track. And then we get on to Ciesla's Revenge, which is instrumental. And then, it kind of intros into the last little bit of the album.
Very, very Western, very cowboyish.
Yeah.
You can almost see the tumbleweed.
See Jaloni, like the nice like Italian Western, like setting like a mood up for a scene or something.
Yeah.
Setting up the end of the album.
So do you know who Ciesla is or what that reference is? I couldn't find anything about this.
No, I didn't actually look. Did you look up?
I tried to Google it, but there was I think a more I don't know. I couldn't find anything about horses or anything like related to, so.
Yeah, I kind of lumped it in.
It could be a friend. Oh, wait, maybe. I wonder if this is the name of a horse or something.
Honestly, I gave so little thought to it because I'm like, it's an intro. It's the intro to the next song. Like,
it's
you would almost put it in the same
so
track,
weird.
But...
Like when I Googled it and couldn't find anything about it, I was like, wait, what is this now? Because I like to have my answers, But I couldn't find much about that word or that name. But I'm just
Wikipedia says it's an occupational surname derived from the Polish word for carpentry. So it'd probably be pronounced like Chesla.
Oh, shit. Tesla's
maybe
Revenge.
It's a racehorse.
That's where my brain went to.
Chesla's Revenge.
Yeah, I don't know. When I hear revenge in the context of the album, I just assumed it's some sort of like vaguely war-related thing. But
Custer's Revenge.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah. So anyone wants to give us a comment, let us know.
Revenge of the Family Reunion.
Revenge of the Family Reunion. Yeah. But this next track we have for you guys is "My Saddle Horse Has Died."
Oh, very sad.
Slightest bit of reason to encourage me to go on in this life. My saddle horse has died. My saddle horse has died. With him goes my pride. For without a charge.
Very Johnny Cash of him to use nice Nice little trumpets.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and
Well,
a
you
little
were
bit of
also-
the Spanish flair to the
Yeah.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, you're referencing Sergio Leone, who I think is the director, right? Like the composer was Ennio I think it's Morricone.
Yeah. Marconi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how the C works in Italian, but
Yeah. But it does have kind of that kind of vibe to it.
yeah, that's why I consider like the two tracks effectively the same. Like it says right in the title, the previous one is an intro, so like you would almost just put them in the same track if you didn't want people to be able to just play it without the intro if they wanted.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where it's just like, because of how this podcast is formatted, like sometimes the intro is just in the song and we can just completely, contain it within the other song. And then other times we're like, we're going to make this its own 20-second track,
It is nice. Yeah, you can do an extra clip here. That was
yeah, we get an extra clip, I guess,
you.
but it's like there's not really much to talk about when there's no, it's only 30 seconds anyway. But yeah, this one though is like, I think one of the saddest tracks, of course. Like this is, I mean, I know there hasn't been just one singular character throughout this, but it feels like this is like, I don't know, the all of the characters kind of like feeling this loss of losing their horse. And not only that, but losing their ability to fight. They want to fight.
Like thematically, it really feels like all the themes in the album, like they do kind of diverge and then like dovetail back together towards the end. And this one I think is really good. It sort of thematically heralds the end of the album, right? It's telling you where you're getting thematically.
Yeah. The last verse here. My saddle horse has died and I am sick inside with thoughts of armies, infidel attacking. When I cannot join the fight, my saddle horse has died. And then it just repeats some of that. But you can kind of, it's a, I don't know, it's a sadder, somber track leading off into the end of the album.
That's actually, I think when you bring up the lyrics here, it makes me notice something else too, where this is a more lyrically sparse song. Yeah. And when you take songs like the first one, I Want to Be in the Cavalry, you take Horse Soldier, you even take like Lester Cousins. But yeah, I think this song really stands out in that after all of those really densely packed lyrical songs, this one lets the lyrics breathe a lot more, and it kind of, you sit in the music a lot more, and you kind of just, it's like it has a more reflective tone that way, which again, I think really sets you up for that finale of the album.
He starts and ends like each stanza with "My saddle horse has died." Like he says that "my saddle horse died" a lot in the track, and that's like definitely, something that he's almost repeating to himself to kind of, I don't know, like deal with it, like go through the stages of grief, maybe,
So here's where the track I sent you comes in. I only learned about this today. So another kind of fun fact of the Corb Lund lore is when he was in like post-secondary stuff, he played in punk bands, and like and the most major one, I think when he was here at Edmonton, he played bass for sort of I don't know if I call it a punk band, but it's like definitely a hard rock band called The Smalls, and they have their albums on.
Okay, so that's what this is.
And it's all written in lowercase too, which I think is kind of clever. And so they have their albums on Spotify and stuff. And I never thought to really go and listen to them. So I thought I'd put on their newest album. And so I just listened to that like a couple hours ago, and it's pretty good. It's worth listening to.
Yeah.
And also interesting that he's like the bassist in that, whereas normally he plays.
Yeah.
He's, the guitarist for his own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I was looking at the Wikipedia track list and noting like, oh yeah, they credited the first song to Stan Rogers. There's a mention that this song was originally a song by the Smalls. So it's actually on their last album from 1999. Given like...
So wait, the track that you were about to hear, or My Saddle Horse Has Died?
My Saddle Horse Has Died.
That was originally for the Smalls?
Yeah.
Oh.
And you can really see like he clearly had that kind of history influence early on.
Yeah.
So it's like genre... I mean, you can play the clip. And
yeah. I'm real curious now. Here we go.
The slightest little reason to encourage me to go on with this life. My saddle horse has died. My saddle horse has died. was my pride.
Huh. Yeah, it's a very different vibe there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah, I listened to the whole track. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's a track that was I was gonna say it was much older, but this album only came out in like 2007, and that Smalls track, 2007. So it was like an 8-year-old track. I think the Smalls one came out in 1999. Wow. That was their last album. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, I like to
learn today.
when there's like different versions of the same thing. Here's another track though. We have the second to last track here. I Want to Be in the Calvary reprise, and I think it's one of my favorite tracks on the album, probably.
The grand parade and the patriotic shouts, they faded fast, didn't even last till the uniforms wore out. And there were none to replace nor to help us face the winter's cold and bleak, the chill to the...
This one just screams like that local band in this area, the Kissers. Just,
mm-hmm.
I feel like just sitting in the Malt House for one of their acoustic sets, and I can just see like Ken just singing along.
Mm-hmm. You should show them
how good is a reprise, right?
This album to them. Yeah, it's
so good.
Yeah,
that's what puts me in like concept territory for me. Is like there's this very intentional use of the reprise to revisit the themes, and like that's why I brought up the beginning. Like, how pumped does the first song make you for war? And you listen to this one, you're like, I don't want to go to war anymore.
yeah. Like he starts off like singing that same sort of thing, but it's like somber and slow, and it's like, it's kind of like what that other song said. Like, now I know what that song means now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then I was this is what I was talking about earlier. My favorite mare with her head in the air took a can to her gut. In the first 2 weeks in that bloody creek, my brother lost his arm. Hold on, I'm trying to see where I think he loses a limb too,
I think
right?
you're maybe conflating
maybe it's just that line. Yeah,
like my back felt like it's broken.
His brother lost his arm, not him in this song. Okay. But he does lose a lot though. This particular character, who is another soldier character that has like dreams and memories of what he's seen, and what was it? This particular song is probably the most this song and the first track I think are particularly about like the Civil War. If I feel like, especially considering he's wearing the Confederate uniform in the album cover. But this one at the end, it says, "We finally were forced to feed on horse and carcass we could scrounge. When the wagon stopped, we burnt the crops to charred and barren ground. With moral in doubt and our pride run out, no honor did I see. All I seen were 1,000 dreams piled dead in front of me." So
that's
full
a killer
circle
line.
to just the horrors of war, and that it should not be glorified,
Yeah, and I think the Genius commenters would agree with you that it's like leaning into the American Civil War. And it's interesting you mentioned that being like, is that definitely Confederate uniform on the cover? Because the version of the album artwork that I'm looking at, like the uniform is blue, right? Which is like the Union color.
Was blue the Union color?
Yeah. Confederates wore
was
gray.
The hat though that I'm confused by, because I feel like the hat looks Confederate, but
it's interesting because I would think maybe I don't have the uniforms in front of me. I can pull them up.
I think you're totally right. Yeah.
It was a one-man army.
Yeah.
Well, it would be clever if you wanted to. See that double button. It does look like the shape of the Confederate uniform. Just looking it up really quick.
Yeah, but the Union Army uniform looks a lot like that too.
Oh, maybe because I was about to give a lot of credit to suggest that maybe like they were intentionally mixing, because this sort of what I was saying earlier, like he really intentionally mixes imagery, I think, in some of the songs, like it jumps between time periods.
Yeah, it does. It does appear to be a mixture of those two styles almost. That's a good call.
And I think with this song in particular is one of the things I wrote down where I don't necessarily agree with the Genius commentators, because I think I think this song does a very effective job of being non-specific about which war he's getting at.
Yeah.
And with like kind of pulling in imagery from different sources, because the whole, I think part of the whole point of the album concept overall is really to generalize and like talk about what's universal among these soldiers. Like, you know, the track about mercenaries is kind of specific to a time where it says like they raise their lances, but you know, it's trying to say what's always true. The mercenaries can't be trusted, right? And so in this one, like there's like especially the mentions of like winter coming in and like feeding on horse, to me is very evocative of like the French invasion of Russia, which is something I've read a ton about.
Yeah.
You know, an invasion that was absolutely devastating to the cavalry specifically. So I think it's what's cool about this song is like these, but also these things like, you know, the typhoid, TB, dysentery, like these come up in like every war. It's very universal.
Yeah.
Says, like,
disease is one of the things that comes with war. Yeah.
Yeah. Like where he says that proved in the end have killed more men than the vilest enemy, referring to the diseases.
Yeah.
I believe that was basically true of, I could be wrong, but I think it was essentially true in like all wars up to World War I, where there was always more deaths from diseases than from combat.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of changed as combat became more violent and as our ability to deal with diseases has gotten better. But yeah, it's like, it's another line that reminds you of that theme of like how stupid war is. It's like, it's nominally about going and shooting people, but it's really about going and shitting yourself to death. Which is another theme that is visited often on Lions Led by Donkeys. I can't recommend it enough as a podcast for people.
Oh like, well, that was a big part of the Civil War, from what I understand, was shitting yourself to death. So,
but all of them, I mean, like, it just happens over and over.
Yeah.
And there's so many examples too, like where he says the froze our bootless feet. Like there's I know there's two big examples from World War I where like very stupid generals took their soldiers to places where they didn't even have proper like footwear and they all froze to death. The Ottomans did it at some point. And the Austrians did it as well. Yeah.
No fun being a soldier, guys. There's
a line in Game of Thrones where they say that like literally somebody says that like they always talk about the glories of war and they sing the songs, but no one ever tells you how the battlefield smells like shit because everybody just shits themselves when they die. You know?
But that line, like all I seen were 1,000 dreams piled dead in front of me, is like the last line of the last verse, and I think it's like he just completely nails it in terms of like such an effective line that is like the last new line of the album. Where it sums up what all the themes have been building toward.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very powerful line too.
Yeah. So definitely points on the anti-war spectrum for this album in general. Like just some really great poignant points about that. I was thinking we could use the 15th track at the end of the podcast, just right before we wrap. You cool with that? Feels like we should play that right before we go to credits. And you guys will know why once you hear it. You guys will understand why, because it's one of those. Yeah.
Well, I think you mentioned the beginning of this track discussion, Brad. You were saying like this is one of your favorite songs, and you know I mentioned earlier those other two songs are among my all-time favorites, and like this song is a contender for one of my favorite songs out there. But if someone says, "Hey, play me your favorite song," I couldn't just play them this song because it doesn't have anywhere near the impact if you don't listen to the whole album start to finish.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
That's what really drives it home, and that's what really like fits into that idea of a concept album to me. It's like this. It's so much synergy with the rest of the album.
Like it would have an impact, but definitely like a lot more of an impact if you've heard the rest of the journey. So
it's like watching like a series and like, no, watch the last episode. It's really good. Like, well, do I need any? No, just watch that last episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be okay, you know.
Yeah, like if you just watched the last episode of Breaking Bad, it'd be like, well,
Avengers Endgame was fine, but so he was a teacher. If you watch the rest, he was a teacher. What? Yeah, that would be shocking, honestly. Last episode. Breaking Bad. Yeah. So before we get to the last track, we're gonna go around the horn though and find out what everyone's been listening to and what they have to plug, and then we're gonna play the last track. A little different this time. So we'll start with we'll do Dave, John, me, and our guest Kelly. So Dave, what you been listening to lately? What you got to plug?
Pretty light this week. Still a lot of like the 2 Mars Volt albums, like the regular one, and then they did like that acoustic one of like the same one. They just kind of both so goddamn good. Listened to that acoustic album probably a lot this last week. There was a new Jenny Lewis album that came out. Listen to that. I think it's called Joy All.
Okay.
And the last thing I did, I don't do this a lot, but every time I go to my storage unit, I go through, I keep like a small stack of CDs in my car, because if I'm just driving, I can't think of what I want to listen to. I just pop a CD in and just throw it in.
Yeah.
And so every now and then I'll take that stack, put it back to the storage unit, and shuffle it around and grab a few more. So today I was driving around like, I don't know. I just picked a random disc. So it was Nirvana. Oh God, which one did I pull out? Nevermind. I'm like, I can't remember the last time I listened to it, but I'm like, this is just like a fun, just like a roulette, just like a random,
it's a
random
good
disc. I'm like, all right,
good driving around music, you know. Yeah.
So it was just kind of a fun, just a wild card.
Yeah, nice. What about you, John? What have you been listening to lately?
Oh, just a lot of Smash Mouth this week. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. King.
Gonna watch some Shrek later this week. You know,
Shrek's gonna hit different. Yeah,
actually, hit a little different
this time.
They kind of did both of those soundtracks, you know.
Yeah. So, we lost a lot this last couple of months.
Yeah,
musician wise,
people just checking out before the end of the world, you know.
Yeah.
And the capitalism, all that good stuff.
As far as what I have been listening to, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently. Been catching up on my Comedy Bang Bang. However. The Stitcher app is no more. I have had to finally convert to Pocket Casts or whatever I'm using now. RIP Stitcher app. I was there from start to finish. Rest in peace Stitcher, and the Widow Howl app as well. And what I have to plug is the YouTube. I just put out another YouTube video of my cousin Bard reviewed some King Gizzard. Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. And he has his friend Seth on to talk about it with him. So
I just clued in that you're doing like an anagram thing there. I saw the Bard thing a few times. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like it's music, whatever. And then I
have no idea what you're talking about. But that's at youtube.com/Flyover State Park, and you can check out those videos. What are you listening to, Kelly? And what do you have to plug?
Often a lot of what I listen to is podcasts, trying to get through my like backlog of auto downloads that tends to pile up. And it didn't get worse when I was like, I want to check out. When I found your podcast, I was like, all right, I'm going to like download all the ones of like albums I like.
Yeah.
Or ones I'm interested in. And so it's like, it just adds to my workload, but it's been helping me try to connect with music again. Because I was just like, I was just doing so much podcast. I was not listening to it. So seeing an album and being like, oh yeah, like I've always wanted to listen to that Chris Gaines album, and you had a link to it because I could never find it. I was like, sweet, I'll listen to that. Terrible.
Well, that's the problem with podcasting though, is like you in music, you can only do one at once. You can either listen to podcasts or listen to music. I wish I could do both at the same time, you know, which I guess you can kind of do in this podcast. So
kind of. But I listened to
Right.
because I believe it was the last one you released was the Against Me album, like Transgender Dysphoria Blues. That was really good. I'd never listened to it before. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that one.
I listened to it like twice actually.
Yeah,
that was a tough album.
That's a tough album. Yeah. I still need some time before I'm going to listen to that one again, but.
Yeah, and I mentioned in your Discord, I'd listened to, like, I'd been a Jagged Little Pill fan for a long time. I listened to that acoustic one. That's so good.
I haven't heard the acoustic version.
Oh, so put it on. The arrangements are so good.
They play it on the radio sometimes. And it's very good.
Yeah. I love that album. So.
Well, like we were talking about production earlier and like how the mics matter and like the way like trends and how people mix and master. And like you listen to Jagged Little Pill, it definitely has that 90s kind of Wallace sound.
Yeah.
Overdriven guitars and stuff. And you listen to the acoustic one and like the arrangements are so good. They're so rich. You hear her vocals so much better.
Yeah.
And Yeah, no, a bad one that I listened to because I was like, oh yeah, I've never listened to this whole album, but I saw an episode on it was Appetite for Destruction. And man, that is a shit album.
Oh, not
everything, a fan. No, everything outside of the radio tunes is so different. It's like fucking Limp Bizkit.
It is like wild. It's yeah. So you look too closely into it. It's like, what the fuck are these guys smoking? What the hell?
It was just like there was no tunes, no melodies. I did not like it.
They're just balls to the wall screaming, doing whatever. You know what I mean? It's just there's actually a fun YouTube video we have that uses Appetite for Destruction for a different a movie. We did the Dark Side of the Moon thing, but with Appetite for Destruction and a different movie.
I did see them on YouTube recommendations, and I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting gimmick. I see what you're trying to do, but I haven't checked it out yet."
It hit. It worked. It worked. I think.
Well, at least half.
But yeah. That's
to cap it off
album.
though. Thematically, I should give a recommendation for. So I just set up. Like I said, I just moved into this place. This is why I'm in a featureless void right now. And I set up my record player, and I played the newest record I got, which is from another very like indie local artist. Like Alberta-based artist called Fish in a Birdcage.
Fish in a Birdcage.
Yeah, it's like it's just two dudes playing like a variety of instruments. And like I saw this guy at a electronic music festival recently that had a lot more like bands playing. Yeah. And this guy like knew my friends, and he came up and he like gave us a little accordion concert in his MIDI accordion. It was really sweet. So I bought their record, and the one I listened to was like definitely odd, but very good. It's very like kind of folky string arrangement. So definitely check out Fish in a Birdcage is my recommendation for
Fish in
people.
a Birdcage. Yeah. I'll try to find a link to throw in the description if you want to support.
Yeah, it's on Spotify and everything. Yeah. So
gotta support local artists.
I think.
Shit.
Oh, and Brad.
Yeah.
Just as a correction, last week I did a recommendation for a radio show.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it right now because my brain's not working fully, but it is not a British show. It is a Australian show.
Oh, okay. I understand.
I mean, Australia is British coded, right? So.
It's kind of, yeah. Sometimes they act a little more British, to seem more proper.
I did listen to it. I did listen to it this week with the guy at work, and they did a whole thing on the Titanic conspiracy theory. It's very good. I think it explains a little bit why we're in the financial situation we are.
Oh, okay. Interesting. It's full circle. Yeah. Kind of. Okay.
About getting rid of the gold standard. The Federal Reserve. People opposing the Federal Reserve died on the Titanic, and that's kind of why we have.
I've heard of this. I've heard of this one recently. Actually,
it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
More NFTs,
and they just go into like a whole 45 minutes.
There's a bunch of NFTs really at the bottom of the ocean. Actually,
fuck you, JP Morgan. Anyways.
Yeah. So that's what we've all been listening to. Thank you, Kelly, for being on the podcast. But we have one more track to get to before
Should I plug my shit first?
Huh?
Should I plug my shit first?
Oh, yeah, right. I'm sorry. I forgot you didn't plug your stuff. Plug your stuff. Yeah.
So, because I know, but it's also, it's actually hard to find when we talked about SEO before, and I really fucked up. I didn't realize it was the name of a Talking Heads song. It was completely by accident.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very weird story of how I came upon that phrase independently. So
have you had to lean into that in any way? Like,
no, I've never listened to the song, and I refuse to. On principle, because I'm really mad about it.
Interesting.
So like the really concise version of how I found it is, you ever seen stuff from like Japan and Korea and the like that's like bad English stuff?
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah.
I was in I was at like a tailor in South Korea, and I was always looking for patches while I was traveling because I wanted to like find patches where I went, and I found all these bad English patches, and I saw what looked like a fake basically like a pseudo biker patch thing. Yeah. And it said born under punches with like no E in punches. And I was like, this is so funny. It's like punches. It's like nobody would come up with that phrase. It's a very like non-English phrase. It's kind of like bad to the bone, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I thought this was just invented a whole cloth. I'm like, I'm going to steal this. I'm going to steal this logo. Like the logo we have, I basically tried to mock it up in an image editor. Yeah. And then after I'd registered everything, I found out like, no, when you spell it correctly, it's a very like popular song. And when you spell it incorrectly, YouTube is like, that's not what you wanted.
Yeah, that's not right. I think you meant this Talking Heads song.
It's so that's fucking hard to find our channel. So you can put this in the description.
We're gonna have a link though. So
everyone should look in the description for our link tree. So it's linktr.ee/. Born Under Punches, no Ian Punches. I'm deeply sorry, but
it's okay.
You'll find it and enjoy our shit. We have a wide variety of stuff we like to do, and we're going to be experimenting with some new concepts soon. So
and come on to the Discord and chat with us on the Discord. We're all in there, and we're gonna be posting about all this stuff. Remember, there's also the world music thing. If you want to contribute to the world music playlist of different languages and dialects across the world, go to the Discord and contribute to that. I'd love to see more input to that project. And
I'll throw my other thematic playlist on there too if people are interested. And
and
we do have a Discord too. We do want people to get on it, but join theirs first, then ours.
There's plenty of Discords to go around, guys. But before we get out of here, though, we got to do something very a little formal for the podcast, but it's the last track of this one. This is Taps.
Do you want to explain what Taps is, or?
Well, the thing is, I feel like they'll know once we start playing it. You know what I mean? So we're gonna stand at attention and salute the camera. Here's Taps. Thank you all for listening to the Album Concept Hour. We will see you guys next week for another album. The Album Concept Hour is Brad LeBaron, Dave Gallagher, and John Aker. Special thanks to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard for the theme music. Join the discussion on our Discord, tweet to us at Album Concept Pod, or for everything else, go to Linktree/Flyover State Park. See you on Side B. This is Flyover State Park. You are clear to land.